Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere that makes your skin buzz before you even get there. The place might be a wedding, a seminar, a party, or just a line outside a coffee shop. But what's shared across all of them is this: the moment your body forgets how to breathe just from being around other people, you smile, you nod, you show up, but something tightens behind your ribs like a drawstring pulled too far, ready to meet the parts of yourself you usually hide. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're watching this from a shadowy hallway or wrapped in 3 blankets, drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step out of the car and the air hits you all wrong. Too thick, like you've walked into someone else's breath. Music is pulsing from inside the building, rhythmic, upbeat, inviting, but your lungs already feel like they're negotiating a ceasefire. The party hasn't even started, and your ribs are already plotting escape. Your breath shortens like a note held wrong. Not broken, just clipped. It's that familiar feeling. A shoelace tied too tight across your chest. You pull your phone out not to check anything, but as a kind of social armor, thin and glowing. You tell yourself you'll go in for 10 minutes, 15 if they have those good cheese things you like. Inside, it's all movement. Laughter and the sound of ice clinking in glasses, the hum of overlapping conversations. The atmosphere feels alive, which would be wonderful if it weren't also carnivorous. Your breath flutters quick, shallow inhales like you're sipping the air through a cracked straw. You remember reading once that shallow breathing triggers your body's stress response? As if your lungs are the switch that flips panic on. Psychologists still debate whether the fear causes the breath to shorten, or if the shortened breath makes the fear rise. Tonight, you're a living science experiment, an unwilling participant in your own nervous system. Someone greets you. You manage a smile so well rehearsed it could win an award in the functional adult category. You hear yourself say, "Hey, how have you been?" But it feels like the sound is coming from behind you. Your body stays still. A mannequin posed to pass as someone who's totally okay. There's a quirky little historical tidbit stuck in your brain. In 17th century France, it was considered suspicious to stay quiet at social events. Silence could get you accused of deceit or worse, witchcraft. That little fact always makes you laugh. Just a little, imagine being scared and suspicious, just because your fear told you to keep your mouth shut. Tonight, you feel both. You scan the room like a slow-moving lighthouse beam. People are laughing, casual, breathing normally like that's the easiest thing in the world. But for you, it's a decision every minute. Breathe in, not too loud. Breathe out, not too fast. You feel like someone could hear the hitch in your chest and ask about it. Worse, notice it. And here's the kicker. Nothing bad is actually happening. No one is yelling. No one's staring. But your body doesn't know that. Your heart's knocking at your ribs like it's late for something. You wish fear made a noise loud enough to drown out the guilt of not being more fun. Instead, it just makes you quieter. You shift your weight. Laugh at something that wasn't funny. Take a sip of something cold just to give your hands a task. And you think, why does this happen every time? It's a cruel loop. You show up because avoiding it makes you feel weak. But being here makes you feel like you're faking your whole personality. Like you're only wearing your own face on a part-time basis. And still somewhere in all this tight air, there's a hope. A thread of something softer underneath the panic. You showed up. That counts. Right. They say that the average adult breathes about 20 times a day. You wonder how many of yours are spent pretending to be fine. Breath becomes currency. Traded for acceptance. You exhale, but never quite enough. You move toward the quieter corner of the room, not too far from the action, just close enough to disappear into it. You tell yourself, I just need a minute. But it's never just one. You're not running away. Not yet. You're just surviving in increments. The music changes, louder, and the laughter around you bursts like popcorn random, joyful, and threatening for reasons you can't articulate. You nod politely at someone who waves. Your shoulders rise. Your breath thins again. If fear had a shape, tonight it would be a corset tightening without consent. Not violent, just insistent. The kind of pressure that makes you forget what it was like to breathe like a human. So it's not that you hate people. You actually like them. In theory, it's just crowds feel like demand, and your body's currency is depleted. You shift again. Count 4 slow breaths. In through your nose. Hold. Out through your mouth. You read that somewhere. Too calm breathing tells your brain you're not in danger. But tonight, your brain politely declines the memo. So you hover, stuck between politeness and paralysis. Your hands stay visible. Your expression remains agreeable. But your breath, your traitorous breath, is already halfway to the exit. You wonder if anyone else can hear it, the catch in your breath. The way it doesn't quite land, like a song that skips half a beat at the chorus. But of course, no one is listening that closely. They're all too busy exhaling with ease. And yet, it feels like all eyes are grazing across your skin, not staring, just brushing. You've always described it as being touched by eyes, 100 little invisible fingers crawling across your shoulders. Your back, the nape of your neck, not aggressive, not warm, just aware. That's the word that always lingers, hyper aware. Of your hands, your posture, the space you take up, of whether you look uncomfortable or, God forbid, awkward. You press your tongue to the roof of your mouth. A habit you developed years ago after reading it helps with confidence posture. You don't know if it works, but it gives your face something to do besides panic. A group nearby erupts into laughter, not at you. Rationally, you know that, but it still pulls at your chest like a thread. It's funny how fear doesn't need evidence to thrive. It just needs noise and imagination and breath. Of course, your breath, specifically, the fuel it feeds on. Psychologists still debate whether this specific kind of fear being seen, judged, noticed is a result of evolutionary defense or social conditioning. Are you afraid of crowds because your ancestors had to flee stampedes? Or because your seventh grade presentation went so badly that your brain still treats public attention like a physical assault? You remember that moment. The one that stuck. You were 13. Your voice cracked. You called volcanoes inflammable mountains? Everyone laughed. You smiled. Sure, but only on the outside. Your breath didn't fully return for 2 days. Since then, every set of eyes has felt like a slow spotlight. Not hot, not bright, just focused. You've walked through malls with your hood up in the middle of summer, sat at the back of classrooms, always near an exit. Even now, you can't eat in restaurants unless you're facing the wall or tucked into a booth. It's not the people, it's their attention. And attention never breathes quietly. There's a woman across the room wearing red Bolton. Unmissable red, and she's laughing so freely it feels like a rebellion. Her body moves without hesitation. Her hair's a mess in a way that says, I forgot to care. You watch her for a moment, wondering how that feels. To be immune, to have lungs that obey in public. You've heard of people who rehearse their every movement before a social event, not because they're vain, but because uncertainty causes physical discomfort. And by people, you mean you. You've practiced sipping from a glass in the mirror, smiled with your eyes to check for weird squints, timed how long to hold eye contact before it feels intrusive. This isn't vanity. This is survival choreography. There's a fringe theory, more folklore than science, that says certain spirits feed on breath. Ancient Japanese Nopara bow legends talk of faceless ghosts that suffocate by proximity. You've always thought fear worked the same way. It doesn't need to attack. It just needs to get close enough that your lungs forget their purpose. Someone walks by and nods at you. You smile back. Quick, friendly, perfectly calibrated to say, I belong here. I'm fine. Your breath hiccups in your throat. Remember those old school desks with the open wire racks beneath? In 5th grade, you used to curl your toes around them just to ground yourself when the teacher called on someone, and the feeling of metal and your own shoelaces was more stable than your own thoughts. Back then, fear was fear of being wrong. Now, fear is simply being seen. You glance toward the exit, not to leave, just to make sure it's still there. A kind of psychological oxygen tank. Knowing the door exists helps you keep breathing, even if you never touch the handle. Funny how freedom often looks like a way out, even when you don't plan to use it. Someone says your name. You turn, heart tapping double time now. The voice is familiar, a coworker or an old friend. You can't tell immediately because fear fogs faces. You give them the correct expression, the upbeat hey, that you practiced on the walk from the cars, but as they start talking, your breath misbehaves again. It starts syncing to their pace talk. Pause, inhale, but your rhythm is off. You breathe when they pause, then forget to exhale while you're speaking. And the worst part is, they don't notice, which somehow makes it worse. Because if they did, maybe they'd lower their voice, or suggest stepping outside, or even just ask, you okay? But they don't. And you continue the game, because stopping would break the spell. And then they'd really see you. Your chest tightens not from what's said, but from the effort of appearing normal. You know how irrational it is? No one's attacking you. No one's even judging you. But fear doesn't need logic. It only needs you. It's parasitic, but quiet, like a whisper lodged in your lungs. You nod in the right places, smile without creasing your eyes, and try to remember what full breath feels like. Not the kind you steal between sentences, the kind that fills your ribs like a safe house. When they finally say, well, good to see you, and drift away, you feel something unspool inside you. Relief, not joy, not comfort. Just the simple release of tension. You take the first real breath you've had in 20 minutes. But even that breath doesn't stay. It's interrupted by the thought, who's watching now? And so the cycle resets. The bathroom becomes your bunker. It's not glamorous. The lights buzz with a fluorescent hum, like tired bees trapped in glass. The mirror is smudged with fingerprints and someone's hastily blotted lipstick. But it's quiet, empty, and, more importantly, solitary. You close the stall door and sit, not because you need to, but because it gives your body permission to stop pretending. Your shoulders drop an inch. Your lungs try to expand, then sputter halfway like they've forgotten how. You press both palms against your thighs, grounding yourself, skin to fabric, warmth to friction. Something real. This is your ritual, the sacred pause. In Japanese Shinto belief, there's the concept of mei negative space, the silence between things, not emptiness, but breath, a beat before the next sound. This stall, right now, is your ma, a liminal pocket where you're not watched, not expected, not on, you can hear your breath again, not the shallow, social one, the real one, that hidden exhale you don't allow in the crowd. The heartbeat is back now, our motif for fear. Remember, soft and steady at first, but loud, always loud, like it's echoing off the tile walls. Syncopated with the fluorescent flicker, you count it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The body's metronome, keeping time with dread. It's strange. You think, how bathrooms become safe havens for people like you. Not because they're clean, they're not. Or peaceful, also false. But because they are sanctioned solitude. No one questions why you're alone here. No one pressures you to rejoin the group immediately. It's an accepted pause. Even in the middle of a bustling event, you glance at your reflection not too long. Just enough to check that your expression isn't betraying you. But the reflection stares back with too much knowing. So you look down. Psychologists still debate whether panic responses in social settings stem more from genetic temperament or early social trauma. But whether nature or nurture, the result is the same. Some brains see a room full of humans and interpret it as a threat field, and not because people are dangerous, but because they are unpredictable, and unpredictability is exhausting. You remember a wedding 3 years ago? A ballroom filled with glitter and voices and spinning dresses? You had to leave halfway through the reception and hide behind a hedge near the valet line. It wasn't dramatic. You just disappeared for a while. Someone later said, "I thought you went to the bathroom." You nodded. Let them believe it. There's something called Enochlophobia. You discovered the word late one night, scrolling through a forum. It's not just fear of crowds. It's fear of being within crowds. Inside them, swallowed. As if your existence could dissolve among all those overlapping conversations and elbows and shoes tapping out rhythms that don't match yours. Some fringe beliefs claim that energy fields clash in large gatherings, that sensitive people can feel others' emotions rubbing up against their own. You're not sure you buy the mysticism, but it's a poetic excuse for why your nerves short-circuit in a room full of cheerful chatter. Maybe your system just doesn't filter well. Maybe you're not built for volume. There's a knock on the stall next to you. You freeze. An instinct older than language. Your breathing stops entirely not out of fear of the person, but fear of being heard, of making sound, of revealing your presence. Because in here, invisibility is your only armor. After a moment, the person enters the adjacent stall and you exhale slow, controlled, hoping the sound of it doesn't bounce too loud off the walls. You can't help but laugh at yourself. Just once, under your breath. A whisper of irony, afraid of making noise in a place designed for noise. Fear doesn't follow logic. It follows you. You check your phone. 3 minutes. That's all you've been gone. It feels longer. Your internal clock runs differently in panic mode. A minute stretches into a song. A breath becomes a paragraph. Time loses shape when it's soaked in adrenaline. You scroll. No notifications. No one's noticed. A blessing and a curse. You think of all the times you've disappeared like this. Office holiday parties. University lectures. A birthday dinner where you spent 20 minutes staring at the flickering exit sign over the kitchen door. All these moments where your body was technically present, but your mind was plotting escape routes like a war general. Historians still argue whether ancient amphitheaters were designed to inspire awe or control. The way sound carried, the way every eye could see every movement. It's debatable whether it was communal beauty or subtle domination. You wonder the same about modern venues, open-plan offices, packed conferences, even shopping malls. Do they unite us or do they expose us? You don't have the answer, but your nervous system leans toward the latter. You tap your fingers against your thigh in a pattern. 2-2-3. Another self-soothing thing you developed somewhere between childhood and now. Rhythm is safety, predictability. Even if the room outside isn't safe, this little coded percussion says, you're still here. You're still you. You flush. Stand and brace yourself. The mirror gets a second glance now, one more fake smile check. One last breath reset. You run cold water over your hands, letting the chill anchor you. The heartbeat softens. The breath begins to behave again. Not normal, but passable. You exit the bathroom and step back into the noise. It doesn't wait for you. It never does. But now you have 3 extra minutes of air inside you. 3 extra minutes of silence. And sometimes that's enough to keep going. You return to your place in the room, unnoticed. The heartbeat slows. But your breath still stutters beneath the surface, waiting for the next moment it has to hide. You drift back into the crowd. A ghost trying to wear skin. The buzz of conversation swells like waves crashing on a rocky shore, too loud, too close, too endless. Your heartbeat pulses against your ribs, an uninvited percussion that drowns out the chatter. It's louder now, insistent, like a spotlight shining inside your chest, and you can almost feel it thudding against your sternum. Trying to break free, you find a corner of safe, if temporary, refuge, and lean against the wall. Your fingers scrape the rough surface, grounding you, seeking texture when everything else feels slippery and unreal. There's a faint creak overhead from the ceiling fan, a soft, mechanical sigh that becomes your lifeline, the recurring sound motif tethering you to the moment. It hums steadily, an audible reminder that you're still here, still breathing, still fighting. You watch faces move in and out of focus, smiling, laughing, talking so effortlessly. It's baffling. Really? How can they be so comfortable? How can you watch and envy them all at once? Social psychologist Irving Goffman suggested that social interactions are like theatrical performances, where we all wear masks and play roles. But for you, the mask feels heavy, suffocating, and the script is impossible to memorize. You fumble your lines, your stage fright unrelenting. You remember a bizarre ritual your great-grandfather had, a fear-clearing dance he claimed could banish phobias. He'd stomp his feet, clap loudly, and chant nonsense words until the fear supposedly fled. It was embarrassing at family gatherings, but the idea that fear could be shaken off, like dust from your shoulders, sticks with you. Maybe that's why you tap your fingers sometimes. Or pace in circles when you think no one's watching. A modern echo of that old superstition. Historians still argue whether ancient rituals served primarily spiritual or psychological purposes. Were these dances just early forms of therapy, or simply cultural noise to mask the terror of uncertainty? Your breath catches again. Quick and shallow, you force it down, counting silently in your head: 1, 2, 3, trying to synchronize your inhales and exhales, but fear's rhythm is a renegade drummer, refusing to follow any beat but its own. You hate that your breath betrays you, that it escapes in whispers and gasps, giving away the storm inside. Someone brushes past, shoulder nearly grazing yours. Your skin prickles. The invisible fingers again light, but unnerving. You remind yourself they don't mean harm, but the feeling is primal, like a warning bell from a distant past when being too close to others could mean danger. You remember a peculiar phobia you read about once. Enochlophobia, fear of snow. It sounds absurd until you think about how unpredictable and isolating that white blanket can be. Fear isn't always about the crowd, it's about losing control, losing safe space. For you, crowds compress that space, making every breath a negotiation. Your phone buzzes, a message from a friend. Where are you? We're all waiting. You stare at the screen, the words burning like an accusation. Your fingers hesitate, then type a lie. Just stepped out for a seckie. Be right back. Because the truth that you're stuck in your own head, suffocating in the swirl, is too heavy to share. You close your eyes briefly. The room spins gently. You hear that creaking fan again, steady and unfazed by your turmoil. It's a small comfort, a mechanical heartbeat echoing yours, reminding you that fear is a pulse, not a prison. You recall a debate among neuroscientists, whether phobias like Enochlophobia are hardwired survival instincts or maladaptive learning. The answer isn't clear. But in this moment, you don't care. Fear feels like a living thing, breathing alongside you, demanding space. Your heart slows just a fraction. The rhythm softens. The fan clicks off somewhere just for a second and the silence crashes in, heavier than the noise. You open your eyes and realize fear isn't just about the crowd outside. It's about the quiet inside you too. And here, in the pause between breaths and noise, you start to find a tiny space for yourself, a fragile truce with the sound of your own heartbeat. You step further into the room, the crowd's hum rising again, a swelling tide that threatens to pull you under. The heartbeat returns, pounding harder this time, a rapid staccato beneath your ribs. It's the same drumbeat you've carried since childhood, the reminder that fear never really leaves. It just changes shape. You notice the shifting shadows cast by the overhead lights, flickering on the walls like quiet specters. The shadows seem to stretch toward you, curious but unthreatening, dancing just beyond your reach. Light and dark playing their endless game like your own thoughts, flickering between calm and chaos. There's an odd comfort in these shifting shapes. They are predictable, rhythmic. They don't judge or crowd you. Sometimes, when the noise gets too much, you fixate on the shadows and breathe with their slow sway, letting the darkness and light become a silent lullaby. You remember the first time you noticed this fear? A school assembly packed shoulder to shoulder. The air thick with murmurs and shifting bodies. Your knees trembled. Your throat tightened. And the shadows on the walls suddenly seemed like sentinels watching your every move. You wanted to disappear, to fold into the cracks between floorboards. Psychologists still debate whether fear responses are more about the perceived danger or the actual threat. It doesn't matter, your body reacts the same other way, like a smoke alarm triggered by burnt toast. There's an old folk belief from Iceland about Hranfossar spirits, invisible forces that inhabit crowded places, absorbing energy from the living. The theory goes that some people are more sensitive to these energies, which explains why crowds feel overwhelming, draining. You chuckle quietly at the thought, amused by the idea of invisible spirits siphoning your willpower, but secretly a little hopeful. Your breathing is shallow again. You try the finger tapping rhythm, 223, like a secret code to your nervous system. It helps, at least for a moment. The tapping becomes a mantra, a small rebellion against the chaos. You catch a glimpse of someone laughing nearby too loud. Too carefree and envy pulses like a second heartbeat. It's irrational, you know, but envy is a cousin to fear. Both born from discomfort, you remind yourself, comparison is the thief of joy, and you're already too exhausted to fight that battle. Your gaze drifts to the exit sign, glowing red in the dim room like a beacon. It calls to you, a promise of air and space and quiet. You consider making a break for it. You always consider it, but this time, you stay. Because even fear needs a witness. Even silence can't be fully silent if it's not shared. In some way, you focus on the creak of the ceiling fan again, steady and unchanging, a mechanical heartbeat echoing your own. It's a reminder. Fear is part of your rhythm, not the whole song. You're learning to listen, to breathe in the spaces between beats. You catch your reflection in a window tense but present and nod. A silent promise to yourself, not yet free, but moving. And sometimes, that's enough. The room's noise swells. A low roar just beyond your skin, like distant thunder that never quite breaks. Your heartbeat pounds, not just a rhythm, but a storm inside your chest, threatening to spill out. It's louder than before, faster, demanding your attention like an urgent whisper you can't ignore. You step aside near the window, letting the edge of the crowd brush past you like waves on the shore. The glass is cold beneath your fingers, a shock of reality. Outside, the city lights twinkle in muted defiance of the night. Steady and distant, the contrast between the chaotic inside and the calm outside sharpens the tension in your chest. You think about the way fear is often called the fight or flight response. It's a biological reflex honed over millennia, designed to keep humans alive. But in crowds, there's nowhere to run, nowhere to fight, just the suffocating weight of bodies and noise. Psychologists still debate whether crowd-induced panic is a survival mechanism or a maladaptive overreaction. You feel caught between both, a body wired to escape, trapped by the very thing it fears. There's a lesser-known ritual from some ancient tribes where people would chant in unison to drown out their fear in large gatherings. The collective voice was thought to create a protective shield. You wonder if modern humans still seek that kind of sonic armor when they scream into concert crowds or chant at protests. You close your eyes briefly, trying to find your own chant, your own rhythm amid the cacophony. The creaking fan overhead provides a steady cadence. You sink your breath to it, inhale, exhale, trying to coax your racing heart into a slower dance. A sudden laugh nearby jolts you. It's too loud. A burst of joy that feels like a spotlight. You shrink back. Overwhelmed by the intensity, you realize the fear isn't just the crowd itself, it's the unpredictability, the emotional tides that can surge without warning. You spot an exit again, the glowing red sign a silent promise. Your feet itch to move, to flee, but you stay, a small act of defiance. Your fingers find the familiar tapping rhythm 223, comforting like a secret handshake with yourself. The crowd is still there, but for a moment, you are too present, breathing, fighting the pull of your own instincts. Historians still argue whether ancient amphitheaters, designed to hold thousands, were meant to empower crowds or control them. You feel a kinship with that debate, caught between the desire to belong and the urge to escape. The shadows on the walls shift again, flickering like silent dancers. You watch, breathing with the dark and light, with the fear and the calm, learning to move in the spaces between. It's not victory, not yet, but it's something. You slip deeper into the room, where voices meld into a thick, vibrating fog. The pulse in your chest hammers harder now, like a frantic drummer trying to outrun the crowd's roar. Each breath is a whispered battle, shallow and uneven. as if your lungs forgot how to fill properly in this sea of people. Your fingers unconsciously tap the familiar rhythm 223 like Morse code sent to your brain. Stay, breathe, ground. It's the only anchor you have. A silent metronome against the chaos. You notice the faint creak of the ceiling fan again, a tiny, persistent sound cutting through the noise. It's your steady companion, the whisper that says, I'm still here. The fan's rhythm, mechanical and unwavering, mirrors the erratic thumping in your chest, a dissonant duet that somehow keeps you tethered. You recall a vivid childhood memory, a school carnival packed with laughing faces and shouting kids. You'd stood on the edge, terrified to join, paralyzed by the swirl of bodies pressing in like invisible walls. That day, your fear crystallized not just the crowd, but the feeling of invisibility within it. Like you could disappear into the mass and never be seen. Psychologists still debate whether enochlophobia stems more from social anxiety or evolutionary survival instincts. The answer feels less important than the reality. Fear grips you, a living thing, pulsing with every breath. There's an obscure ritual you once heard of people who wear a specific scent, like lavender or cedar, to mark their personal space in a crowd. It's a quirky coping mechanism, a small bubble of control in a world that feels too wide. You wonder if your tapping is just your own invisible scent, a way to claim your corner in this crowded room. Suddenly, a loud cheer erupts nearby, sharp and overwhelming, crashing over you like a wave. Your heart spikes, breath hitching, and you blink rapidly, desperate to recalibrate. The crowd's energy feels like a tide, pulling you under with no lifeline. You glance again toward the exit, the glowing red sign like a pulse of hope. But this time, you don't move. You stay, you breathe. You tap, the fan creaks again, steady and sure. Shadows flicker on the walls, shifting shapes that seem to understand your silent struggle. You feel a strange kinship with those moving shadows, dancing between light and dark, fear and calm, not escape, not surrender, just presence. You remind yourself the rhythm of fear is never constant. It ebbs and flows. And right now, you're learning to ride the waves, not drown in them. You feel the weight of the crowd press in again, thicker now, like humidity wrapping around your skin. The heartbeat inside your chest has turned into a drum line, urgent, demanding, impossible to ignore. It's almost a sound you can feel in your bones, reverberating with the muffled footsteps and laughter that fill the room. Your fingers keep tapping. 223, a tiny rebellion in the chaos. The rhythm feels like a secret handshake between you and your own nervous system, a lifeline thrown into the storm. The ceiling fan's creaking has slowed, but its presence remains a metronome that anchors the space around you. You remember the first time you told someone about this fear? You stumbled over words, the admission heavy and awkward, like confessing to an embarrassing secret. The look they gave you, half sympathy, half confusion, echoes still. It made you wonder if fear is something we only really understand alone, or if it's a shared secret everyone carries in some hidden pocket. Psychologists still debate if phobias like enochlophobia are best treated through exposure therapy or cognitive behavioral techniques. Both sound clinical, abstract, yet here you are, living that debate every time you step into a crowd. You recall reading about a strange tribal custom where people would place stones in their pockets before a gathering, each stone a token of courage to carry with them. It's silly, but you find yourself imagining the weight of those stones in your hand, a physical reminder that fear is something you can hold and maybe even control. The room shifts, the crowd's energy surging in unpredictable waves. A burst of laughter from nearby feels like a sudden gust of wind, scattering the fragile calm you built. Your breath catches, shallow and fast, and you close your eyes for a moment to find the fans creak again, steady and persistent. Like a heartbeat you can trust, you think about the shadows flickering at the edges of the room, how they bend and stretch in response to the light. They remind you of your own fear shape-shifting, elusive, but always there. Sometimes, the shadows are monstrous. Other times, they simply dance. The exit sign pulses quietly, a distant heartbeat of hope. You don't move toward it yet. Instead, you stay, you breathe. You tap your fingers. This isn't a victory, not a defeat. It's a step small, shaky, but forward. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now. The hum of the room feels like a living thing now, pressing against your skin and swirling inside your chest. Your heartbeat is no longer just a drum. It's a frantic, relentless tattoo, a wild rhythm that refuses to slow. The crowd's presence is a tide you didn't ask for but must learn to navigate. You glance around, searching for any sign of relief, a quiet corner, a friendly face, or even just a patch of shadow where you can hide. The creak of the ceiling fan is your only steady companion, slicing through the noise like a lighthouse beam. Its sound is a lifeline, a reminder that somewhere, steady motion exists even in chaos. Your fingers return to that rhythm. 223, a subtle defiance against the swirling panic. It's your secret code, your invisible shield. You think back to a family gathering years ago, a room packed with voices and laughter. You'd clung to the edge, a silent observer too afraid to join in. The fear wasn't just the crowd, it was the vulnerability, the feeling of being exposed under countless eyes. You remember the tight knot in your stomach, the way your breath caught in your throat. Historians still argue whether social fears are a modern invention or as old as human civilization itself. Maybe your fear is a remnant of ancient instincts, wired into your DNA, a survival echo that tells you to be wary. There's a curious practice in some cultures where people carry small bells to ward off anxious thoughts or spirits. The ringing distracts the mind, offering a tangible focus. You imagine yourself with a tiny bell in your pocket, the soft chime cutting through the mental static. A sudden cheer nearby makes your heart leap, a jarring note against the steady fan creak. You close your eyes and breathe deeply, trying to sync with that slower, steadier rhythm. The exit sign glows softly, a distant pulse of calm you want to reach but can't quite move towards. You stay, breathing and tapping, caught between the urge to flee and the will to remain. You feel the shadows again, flickering like silent witnesses. They're still dancing, still waiting. Fear isn't an enemy tonight. It's a presence unwelcome. Maybe, but real. And for now, that's enough. The noise around you thickens, a tide of indistinct voices crashing relentlessly. Your heartbeat has slowed just enough to become a stuttering rhythm, uneven but steady enough to remind you that you're still here. The creaking fan above keeps its steady beat, a metronome for your frayed nerves. It's almost comforting in its predictability, like a secret song only you can hear. Your fingers tap 223 against your leg, a subtle defiance against the crowd's overwhelming presence. That rhythm, that small rebellion, has become your lifeline. You cling to it, as if it could push back the swirling anxiety clawing at your chest. You remember a moment from years ago, a bustling marketplace filled with strangers, where you froze, caught in the tide of faces and noise. The fear wasn't just the people, it was the loss of control, the feeling that you'd been swallowed whole by a living, breathing beast. It's a sensation you know well now, like an old, unwelcome friend. Psychologists still debate whether enochlophobia is purely a social anxiety or if it taps into deeper, evolutionary fears of being trapped or overwhelmed. Either way, the effect is visceral, an internal chaos that can't be reasoned away. There's an obscure belief from some nomadic tribes that wearing brightly colored beads protects against crowd-induced panic by confusing the spirit of anxiety. You smile at the thought, imagining how silly it must seem to outsiders, but also how any tiny piece of control might be worth holding on to. Suddenly, a burst of laughter echoes nearby too loud, too bright. Your heart stutters, breath catching in your throat, and you close your eyes, focusing on the fan's creak, slow and steady. It's a reminder that not everything here is chaos. Some rhythms persist. You glance at the exit sign, glowing red in the distance, a pulse of hope just out of reach. You don't move toward it yet. Instead, you breathe deeply and tap your fingers, grounding yourself in the moment. The shadows dance on the walls, flickering between light and dark, as if acknowledging your quiet fight. You are here, present, struggling but enduring. It's not freedom, but it's not surrender either. And sometimes, that is the most anyone can ask for. The crowd seems to swell again, a living, breathing mass pressing in on all sides. Your heartbeat is a relentless drumbeat now, thudding in your ears, syncing with the cacophony around you. The creak of the ceiling fan is faint but constant, like a heartbeat beneath the chaos, a reminder that steady rhythm still exists somewhere. You find your fingers tapping 223 against your leg, the rhythm becoming a mantra, a quiet rebellion. It's the one thing that feels yours in this moment, a tiny island of control amid the storm. You remember a family reunion years ago, where the room had been packed, every voice louder than the last. You'd stayed close to the door, hoping to escape the overwhelming noise. The fear wasn't just about the crowd, it was about being invisible and yet utterly exposed all at once, like standing naked in a spotlight surrounded by strangers. Psychologists still debate whether enochlophobia is more about the fear of people or the fear of losing control. Maybe it's both, intertwined like the shadows flickering around you. You recall an unusual ritual from some isolated villages where people would wear masks during festivals to shield themselves from the gaze of the crowd, believing it would protect their spirit from anxiety. You find yourself wishing for such a mask now, something to hide behind, to keep the fear at bay. Suddenly, a burst of laughter explodes nearby, sharp and piercing. Your breath catches, and your heart races faster, but you lean into the creak of the fan, steady, calm. It's the lifeline you desperately cling to. Your eyes drift to the exit sign glowing faintly in the distance. You want to move toward it, but your feet stay rooted. Instead, you breathe deeply, tapping your fingers, grounding yourself. The shadows on the wall twist and flicker. A dance between fear and calm. You feel them reach for you, not to pull you under, but to remind you that you are still here, still fighting. It's not a victory lap or a final escape. It's a quiet moment of presence. And sometimes, that's everything. The room's noise pulses again, voices, laughter, footsteps like a tide rising and falling. Your heartbeat is a wild drumbeat, filling your chest and ears, demanding attention. Yet beneath that chaos, the ceiling fan creaks on, slow and steady, a rhythmic whisper threading through the noise. It's your secret anchor, a lifeline amid the storm. Your fingers tap 223, a small rebellion against the chaos, a quiet drumbeat syncing with the fan's creak. That rhythm is yours, a tiny island in the crowd's ocean. You flash back to a crowded subway car years ago, packed with strangers pressed shoulder to shoulder. Panic welled up inside you, a cold wave that froze your limbs and constricted your breath. You realize then the fear wasn't just crowds, it was the loss of personal space. The invisible walls closing in. Psychologists still debate whether enochlophobia is a specific phobia or a symptom of broader anxiety disorders. The lines blur, but the experience remains sharp and visceral. You recall a curious tradition in some cultures where people carry tiny bells to jingle softly, creating a personal sound bubble that distracts from overwhelming stimuli. You smile at the idea, wondering if your tapping is your own silent bell, ringing against the noise. A sudden cheer from nearby snaps your attention. Your breath stutters, heart racing. You close your eyes, seeking the fan's steady creak once more. A grounding hum that soothes the edges of your panic. The exit sign glows faintly ahead, a distant beacon. You don't move toward it yet. Instead, you breathe deeply and tap your fingers, holding steady in the storm. The shadows flicker again, dancing quietly on the walls, a reminder that fear is ever present, shifting shapes, but also capable of gentle movements. You are here, caught between light and dark, fear and calm, and sometimes, presence itself is the bravest act. The crowd's murmur thickens, like a rolling fog settling over your skin. Your heart beats erratically now, a frantic percussion against the steady creak of the ceiling fan. That fan, an old friend in this tempest, whispers a steady rhythm, a quiet promise that the world keeps turning even when you feel stuck. Your fingers tap 223 against your leg, the rhythm now a subtle tattoo beneath the chaos. It's your secret message. I'm here. I'm still here. You remember a holiday party from years past? The room teeming with strangers and laughter that echoed like thunder. You stood at the edge, gripping your cup too tightly, feeling the walls close in as the crowd pressed nearer. The fear wasn't just physical, it was the invisible spotlight of being watched, judged, and overwhelmed. Psychologists still debate whether the fear of crowds is rooted more in social fears or primal instincts of being trapped. The truth might be a tangled knot of both, winding deep inside. You think about an odd ritual you once read about, where people would carry small, smooth stones in their pockets to ground themselves during gatherings. The weight was meant to remind them they had something solid beneath their feet. You almost wish you had one now. A sudden shout erupts, startling your breath. Your heartbeat spikes. But the fan's creak cuts through the noise, a steady pulse beneath the storm. You close your eyes and listen, focusing on that gentle creak as if it's the one trustworthy voice in the room. The exit sign flickers softly in the distance, a quiet beacon. You don't move toward it just yet. Instead, you stay rooted, breathing and tapping, finding strength in stillness. Shadows flicker across the walls, twisting and stretching like silent sentinels. They remind you that fear is never fixed, always shifting, sometimes monstrous, sometimes graceful. You are here, breathing, surviving, moving slowly through the storm. And that is enough for tonight. The murmur of voices swells, a tidal wave of sound that threatens to drown you. Your heartbeat pounds erratically, a wild staccato echoing through your chest. Yet above it all, the creak of the ceiling fan continues a persistent, soothing metronome in the chaos. It is the only constant, a quiet thread weaving through your unraveling thoughts. Your fingers tap 223, a small, steady rebellion. The rhythm is yours alone, a lifeline tethering you to the present as the crowd presses closer. You recall a moment in a busy cafe, the buzz of conversation enveloping you like a thick fog. The fear wasn't just the noise or the bodies. It was the suffocating sense that you were trapped in a bubble, invisible yet hypervisible. You wanted to disappear and scream simultaneously. Psychologists still debate whether the physiological symptoms of enochlophobia are triggered more by sensory overload or social anxiety, a question that remains tangled in complexity. You remember reading about a peculiar custom where some people carry a small piece of cloth scented with lavender to calm nerves during overwhelming social situations? You imagine pressing a soft fabric to your face, the scent cutting through the mental haze, A sudden cheer jolts you, sharp and bright like a spark. Your breath catches, heart skipping a beat. But the fan's creak draws you back a rhythmic anchor in the storm. The exit sign glows faintly, beckoning softly. You don't move toward it yet. Instead, you breathe deeply, tapping your fingers, grounding yourself in the present. The shadows on the walls flicker and sway, a dance between light and darks, fear and calm. They are your silent companions, always there, shifting but never gone. You are here, breathing, enduring, inching towards something like peace. And sometimes that slow step forward is everything. The room hums around you, voices blending into a single, overwhelming pulse. Your heartbeat feels like a thunderclap, deafening and unyielding. Yet beneath it all, the ceiling fan creaks its steady rhythm, a quiet companion through the storm. It is the thread that weaves your scattered thoughts into something coherent, a reminder that not all is lost. Your fingers tap 223, a steady beat of resistance. That rhythm is your anchor, your silent declaration that you will not be swallowed by the crowd. You recall a night long ago, a packed concert where the sea of bodies pushed and pressed. You had wanted to scream, to vanish. The fear wasn't just the people, it was the loss of control, the helplessness that gripped you tight. Psychologists still debate the best ways to help those with enochlophobia, balancing exposure therapies with gentler, acceptance-based approaches. The journey is rarely straightforward. You remember an odd fact. In some places, people wear brightly colored shoes during festivals to step out of anxiety's grip. You smile, imagining dancing through the crowd, each step a bold defiance. A sudden cheer bursts, startling, but the fan's creak pulls you back. A soft, steady heartbeat beneath the noise. Your eyes find the exit sign, glowing softly, a beacon. You rise slowly, breath deep, tapping your fingers once more. You're not running yet, but you're moving. That matters. The shadows flicker. Their dance slower now. Gentler. Fear is still here, but it's quieter, more manageable. You are here, breathing, moving, surviving. And tonight, that is more than enough. Slowing now. The noise softens. The pounding heart eases. Your breath lengthens. Deeper. Calmer. The creak of the fan fades into a whisper, like a lullaby, coaxing the fear to settle, to fold itself gently away. You rest in this fragile peace, knowing the journey continues, but this moment is yours. End of script. Sweet dreams.